I want to begin by taking away the explanation that makes everyone feel better. When a society turns on a group and destroys it, we like to say they were a scapegoat. Any group would have done. The victim was perfectly innocent, chosen at random, and so there is nothing more to understand, only evil to condemn. It is a soothing theory. It is also wrong, because if the victim were truly interchangeable, you would have to explain why this group, in this place, at this moment, and the instant you start explaining, you have abandoned the theory of pure randomness entirely. So I asked the harder question, when does the hatred actually erupt? And the answer surprised me. Not when a group is most powerful, but when it has just lost its power and kept only its visibility, its wealth, its prominence, with the function that once justified them stripped away. People will tolerate enormous power if they think it does something. What they cannot forgive is what looks like privilege without purpose. The position that seems to serve nothing, and so seems to deserve nothing. That is the dangerous moment, not strength, the hollow shell of strength left exposed after the substance is gone. History keeps the receipts on this if you are willing to read them. Now, where do the methods of the catastrophe come from? Not from nowhere. They were rehearsed abroad, long before they came home. In the imperial age, money piled up that could find nothing useful to do, superfluous capital. And alongside it, people who had been squeezed out, who belonged nowhere, superfluous men. The two were shipped overseas together, and a new principle was born to justify it. Expansion for expansion's sake, not expansion toward a goal, growth as its own purpose. Power accumulating power simply because stopping felt like dying. And this broke something the old world had understood. A nation has borders, laws, a people who consent. It has by its nature a limit, but a project of endless expansion recognizes no limit at all. Out in the colonies, far from any law that applied to them, administrators learned to govern by decree, by race, by massacre, dressed up as administration, to rule people they never had to answer to. Here is the part no one wanted to hear. What you practice on others does not stay away. The methods built for distant subjects come home. I called it the boomerang. You throw lawlessness outward, and one day it returns and lands on you. Before you can do the unthinkable to people, you have to first make them superfluous, not poor, superfluous, stripped of any place in the world where their existence matters to anyone. This is what the upheavals of the century mass produced. Millions of people who had lost their community, their standing, their belonging, until they became, in the cold arithmetic of power, surplus, spar. Subtract them, and nothing of consequence seems to change. And superfluous people become masses. Notice, a mass is not a class, not a group with shared interests who can bargain and act together. It is what remains after all those bonds have dissolved, a crowd of the isolated, each one alone, each one feeling that the world has no need of him. And a person in that condition will reach for anything that restores a sense of significance, any movement that says you are not nothing, you are part of something vast, something that is going to remake the world. That is the raw material, not monsters. Lonely people, convinced they had been discarded, looking for somewhere, anywhere, to finally belong. Now to the thing itself. And I want to be careful because it was genuinely new. Ordinary tyranny wants your obedience. It silences you, it frightens you, but it leaves your inner world more or less intact. You may think what you like, so long as you keep quiet. Total domination wants more than that. It wants the inside. It runs on two engines. Terror, which isolates every person until no one will act with anyone else. And an ideology, a single idea that claims to explain all of history, past and future, with airtight logic, so that no fact can ever contradict it. And here is the most important sentence I can give you. The ideal subject of such a regime is not the fanatic, not the true believer who burns with conviction. It is the person for whom the difference between fact and fiction, between true and false, has simply stopped existing. The one who no longer trusts what they saw with their own eyes over what they have been told. Once enough people reach that state, anything becomes possible, because there is no longer any solid ground from which to say, that is a lie. You do not have to make people believe the lie. You only have to wear them down until they no longer believe anything at all. Exhaustion, not conviction, is the goal. So let me name the soil all of this grows in. One word, loneliness. And I mean something exact by it, not solitude, which is being alone with yourself and your own thinking, a thing every good mind needs. Loneliness is the opposite. It is being deserted by everyone, including finally yourself, cut off so completely that you lose even the inner companion that thinking provides. Terror needs that condition. It cannot rule people who are still genuinely connected to one another, who still act together. So its first task is always to drive them apart until each person stands alone and therefore powerless. Power, after all, only ever comes from people acting in concert. And this is why I refuse to end in despair, however dark the material. Because if loneliness is the ground, then the antidote is not mysterious. It is plurality. It is people in their differences choosing to act together, beginning something new. The capacity to begin, that is what no terror can fully extinguish, because every single human birth is proof that the world can still be surprised. These movements promise the masses an iron certainty that history is settled, the future already written, and you need only fall in line. I am telling you the opposite. Nothing about the human story is settled, because nothing is finished while people are still free to begin again. That is not consolation. It is a responsibility, and it is handed every morning to you.